Hello, hello. Oh my gosh, I am so excited. I've been waiting for this. And hello, everyone that is watching, whether it's on Zoom or on Facebook. As Chelsea mentioned, I am Shyrier. I met Chelsea in college. We went to UNC Chapel Hill together. I majored in psychology, got my degree in psychology. I also grew up in North Carolina, so I'm a North Carolina native. So really excited to be able to do this for Central. And yeah, a little bit about myself. So majored in psychology at UNC. For a while, I actually thought that I wanted to be a teacher. So after I graduated from UNC, I joined Shyrier, as Chelsea mentioned, but as a core member where I worked directly with students, providing academic and behavioral support. I did that for 2 years, and my first year was actually in Los Angeles, and then my second year was in San Antonio. And then after I finished up my second year as a core member, I then joined Shyrier's staff, where I had a role. My title of my position was it was operations like associate, but I did a lot of different things. I was doing marketing, I was doing office management, I was doing event planning. Like once you're in a nonprofit industry, you just learn to just wear a lot of different hats. And so that was probably like my first real taste of marketing, just working in that role and just like helping with managing social media and really just like doing a lot of like event planning and even like doing some fundraising. And I really enjoyed it. I loved being able to connect with our audiences online. And that's what really sparked my interest. And then from there, I got the opportunity to work for headquarters, Shyrier's headquarters in Boston. So I moved out to Boston and I was working under the chief marketing officer at that time for Shyrier's. And that was also when I continued exploring my interest in marketing. So I was able to work on specific digital campaigns. I was able to also continue supporting with social media as we were kind of in this interim space with like hiring a social media manager. And then once we hired a social media manager, I was able to help onboard them and continue to support in that area. And then from there, I was able to work on paid advertising campaigns and do more email marketing. And right before I left Shyrier's, I was able to help us basically rebrand and rebuild our website. So that was like my last big project with Shyrier's, which was really exciting. And then I got the opportunity to join Facebook, and here I am. That's a little bit about myself, but yeah, I'm excited to dive into some questions.
I have them ready. I'm so excited. Um,
Awesome.
so I guess talk about how you got started in marketing because you mentioned you were a psychology major, you wanted to be a teacher. I remember all of those kind of conversations that we had at Carolina about becoming a teacher and kind of figuring out that path. So, what was it that made you say, "Hey, I want to do marketing now"? And how is that switch?
Yeah, so it was a very interesting transition. I think for me, like those first 2 years that I was working as a core member with Shyrier's, honestly were two of like the most impactful years of my life. Like just being able to directly work with students in one space, in one high school space, and another like K-8 space, and really being able to like understand like what all goes into like education and what impacts a student's progress and learning. And then from there I was able to realize that while I really enjoyed like working with students and I was still very much passionate about supporting students, I didn't feel like for me that path was direct support. So I started to just like think about the other ways in which I could continue working within the education industry, but like more on like the nonprofit management end. So that's when I kind of like made that switch onto staff for City of San Antonio. And then from there, just really being able to work on just like social media and like one-off marketing projects. I just learned that I really had a passion for, I think, just like building community and communication. Like throughout my life, I was always told like, oh my gosh, you're such a good communicator, but I didn't really know like what that meant. And then with my psychology background, I remember just loving my psychology courses in college. And I actually had a marketing psychology course that I took my senior year where we had to work on a project, and it had to, be a project that was about, bringing on social good. So my team happened to choose a project where we decided to just spread awareness about the importance of just like recycling like shoes. It's something that no one would actually like. When you think about recycling, you don't think about shoes normally, but there's actually a lot of good use that comes from like just recycling shoes. And there was a specific organization that was working to have more people like recycle shoes, and then they were transforming those shoes into playgrounds. So we did this whole marketing presentation about that, and like what around UNC's campus, getting people to recycle their shoes. It was like more of like a competitive project, which also sparked my interest because I'm very competitive. But I know like coming out of that project, I was just like, wow, like in that short amount of time, we were able to do a really good thing and like contribute to a really great cause, but also just like the methods that we use to spread awareness about that project really made me see like the importance of marketing and communications. And so in my work with Shyrier, just like doing those one-off projects and just like really going to the people that I knew that were doing marketing, just being like, hey, I have this interest. I may not have like the most experience, but I know I have the skills that are needed. So like give me these opportunities, and really just like taking them on and doing really well at them. And so I think that really just like seeing myself move from education to like nonprofit management to then marketing and communications, it felt really like easy to kind of like make that like transition, because to me all of those areas were like connected. And so I think that for me, like one of the things that I love most about like marketing and communications is really just being able to connect with people. You think about platforms like Facebook and Twitter and like the ones that we are, or Instagram. You think about like the fact that you can literally upload a tweet, a post, a picture, and reach thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. Like that's just amazing to be able to think about, and just like think about the connection that that brings. Like I know people who, were able to find family members on Facebook by just like searching for their name and being able to find like their profile, and really being able to like connect with people who they don't just see every day. Like for example, with you and me, Chelsea, I'm in California, Chelsea, is in North Carolina, but we have, because of all these communication channels and social media platforms, we're still able to be very much connected in each other's lives. And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Yes. And I love that you work at Facebook because I feel like Facebook is all about connecting. I think, when they first started, it was about connecting with your classmates, connecting with people that you don't see every single day. So I love that one of your favorite things about marketing is connecting, and you're at a place that is literally, they've built their brand on that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what besides communication and connecting, um I think that it's very interesting what skills you may have brought from your psychology major into marketing and communications. I know that some students, we might major in things that have nothing to do with our end path. So, what skills and experiences have you brought from your undergrad degree or your experiences in that realm into your role at Shyrier and at Facebook?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, yeah, from like my psychology background, like psychology is all about understanding the mind, like understanding like people, why people do certain stuff, like what are the factors that go into, a person taking a certain action. And that's all marketing. Like when you're in marketing, you're constantly studying people, you're constantly studying trends, you're analyzing these areas, and you're trying to figure out like what is going to be the best approach, what is going to be the best message, the best image in order to make a person take a certain action. What are the different things about this audience that interest them? Like you think about user personas, you think about, audience insights, like all of that is psychology, like really being able to look at, like, for example, Gen Z and say, like, okay, I know that for Gen Z, like being independent is very important for them. So when I'm crafting a message to the Gen Z audience, I'm going to make sure that they know that they're the ones in charge. Like, like they have the autonomy to like be themselves, to be authentic. Looking at like trends, like, like I feel right now we're in the video age. You have TikTok, really like blowing up, especially during the pandemic, because we're all at home, bored, trying to figure out what to do. And really think about the creative ways that people have been able to use video and being able to look at that and be like, okay, like we need to use more video like in our marketing. That's what appeals to people right now. So how can we use that? And so psychology, but it made me also just like having a love of just like studying people, and like I'm a very like real observer. I just love like if I'm outside just like by myself, I like to watch, just like my surroundings and being able to evaluate and just be able to draw insights from that. And that really is helpful when it comes to marketing. So I think that having my psychology background has really just already like equipped me with the tools that I needed in order to be successful insight in marketing. And I think also just like with my Shyrier background and having to work with students and communicate with students on a daily basis and be able to talk to school admin and talk to other people in the community, it's also just made me like a really good a communicator, like being able to know how to translate the importance of a certain initiative or endeavor. And I think that that's something that marketers like really need to know how to like do well. Like if you're trying to sell a product to someone, they need to know like one, like what's in it for me. I think that's something that my students would ask me all the time. They're like, Miss, you want me to complete my homework, but like what's in it for me? Like why is it important for me to do this? It's the same thing when you're trying to get someone to buy a purse. What's in it for me? Why should I buy this purse versus this purse on this other site? And all of those things are things that you can learn honestly in like whatever industry that you're in. I see marketing as an industry that you don't necessarily need a certain degree or like a certain, type of experience in order to do it well.
I love that. I love the point about being observant. I think that's definitely a skill upcoming marketers need because, like you said, TikTok has risen during the pandemic. Earlier, we talked about verses. So, being observant to those trends and being able to apply those to whatever company or brand that you're working with. So we have a question from Facebook. Lorraine said, hi, nice to meet you, and thank you for
Hi,
sharing.
Lorraine.
I was wondering how you apply storytelling to your work and what that means for you.
Yeah, great question. Also, Lorraine, my middle name is Lorraine. So, just a little fun fact there. That's a great question. Yeah, so my work is heavily focused on storytelling. So, part of my role on the education modernization team at Facebook is really being able to help our different programs just like craft their story. So, my team is focused on creating educational programs that are based in STEM and computer science for underrepresented communities. So communities that are predominantly Black, communities that are predominantly Native and Indigenous, and really being able to provide accessible and free programming for them. So part of my role in content development and marketing is being able to tell the story of our program. So like, why is this program important? Like, what does it do for those communities? Like, how is it positioning itself in the STEM and computer science industry, especially in comparison to the other programs that are out there? It's like, so for me, when I am crafting content, one thing that I try to keep in mind is the community's voice. I say all the time when I'm like working on whether it's a blog, whether it's a social media post, whether it's like website content, that I'm keeping the audience in mind and I'm making sure that I'm able to amplify those underrepresented voices. So, for example, I am currently working on a campaign for one of our programs where we're going to feature student stories. So, we were able, before the pandemic, we're able to actually go do a site visit and be able to interview students and be able to ask them like one of why they were happy to be a part of like our program, but then also learning more about their background and how they see themselves within the computer science, tech, and STEM industries. And we got really like authentic and even vulnerable stories from those students. And they trusted us with that information. And they wanted us to be able to tell their stories on our, bigger platforms. So right now I'm working on this project where we are taking their stories and we're doing like these really cool like video animated graphics to really bring their stories to life. But also, as I was writing kind of like the script for those videos, I was making sure that their voices were front and center. It wasn't really about our programs, but it was about the students and how they see themselves like in this world, and making sure that we would be respectful and honoring their stories. So I think that for marketing just in general, like you're telling a story, whether it's telling a story about why, like this certain product is the best product, or telling a story about how your program has like brought together like a group of people and how those people are like affected by all these different things that are happening in the world. Is really about just like making sure that the story is authentic, that is real, and is respectful of the ones that it represents.
I think that's awesome. That's a really interesting campaign that y'all did. Well, I guess you kind of went into what your team at Facebook does, but I guess I'm sure plenty of students want to know, what is it like working at Facebook? Like, what's the most interesting part of your job?
Yeah, so I've been with Facebook now for almost a year, and actually it'll be a year on February 10th. So coming up really soon, my 1 year anniversary. But yeah, no, it's been really great so far. Like I said, we have been working from home for a majority of the time. I literally had maybe 2 weeks on Facebook's campus, and then we had to like go to like work from home mode because of the pandemic, which really sucked because Facebook's campus is really, really cool. So I was pretty pumped to be able to work there, but it's okay. It's okay. But yeah, like I think that working at Facebook and particularly like on this team, I thought that it was going to be, like a more challenging transition because I was going from, a nonprofit industry to a for-profit industry. But my team actually is not is like nonprofit. So we're pretty much like a nonprofit team that exists within Facebook. So the work that we do, the programs that we create, they're all free. They're free and they're accessible like to the different communities that we work with. And so we're not trying to generate revenue, we're not trying to sell anything. We really are just trying to support and empower students. And so for that, for me, was really important because for a while I wasn't sure like how I would do in the for-profit industry because I was so used to nonprofit work. And I wanted to make sure that no matter what I was doing, it was mission driven. I wanted work that had a very clear and strong mission and vision. And for me, like my team like had that. So it was really easy for me to like make that choice to switch over to Facebook. But yeah, I mean, from time to time, like especially being a Black woman, within like big tech, you do run into imposter syndrome. I wish that there was more representation, of Black women and women of color, just like people of color in general, like within big tech. And you definitely can find like your little like communities and like your groups. Like there's like a lot of affinity groups at Facebook where I'm able to connect with like other Black people and be able to like, like find community within those groups. But there needs to be like a lot more. And so for me, it's really just reminding myself that I worked hard to get to where I am, and that I have all the skills and experience that I need to or to be successful. And also also understand that just because someone, works for a big company like Facebook doesn't mean that they're more knowledgeable than you, doesn't mean that, like they have like more experience than you per se. Like we're all just trying to figure it out as we go, like from each day. And I think over time, like I started to like really understand that, and that helped me with my imposter syndrome to be like, okay, like yeah, this person has like a really cool background, but also when they look at me, they think I'm cool too. And they think that I have a lot to like, add to the team and like add to like our goals and our impact. And so just reminding myself about that. But yeah, I think it's been really cool to be able to work with my team, because it's a team that I never even knew existed, at Facebook, because we're not like super public facing, because we are more like interested in just like supporting and like adding value to communities. We're not really like trying to like sell or like market ourselves. But in my role, I have been able to help my team be a little bit more public facing and finding more ways that we're able to engage with people like on a broader audience. I think it's also important for people to know that this type of work is happening at Facebook, and that there are teams that are dedicated to really just doing good within the world. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you're able to work on a part of the team at Facebook that is so close to your mission personally and what you're passionate about. Um, so you touched on it briefly, but talk a little about what it is like being a Black woman at Facebook, a Black woman in big tech, and even what it was like in City Year. I know that you worked in Boston, which we know is notably not a place of much diversity. So how is it, transitioning from that environment to working in tech and where you are now?
Yeah. So I think definitely like, especially like being like a Black woman like at like Facebook, I think that it comes with just like this greater sense of responsibility, because because we're not like the predominant group at Facebook. It really like makes me very aware that I have a responsibility to, one, if I can like help other people of color like get the opportunity to work for a company like Facebook, making sure that I'm actively doing that. So when people like reach out to me and they're just like, hey, I want to learn more about how it is working at Facebook, or can you tell me, I saw this role that was posted, can you tell me more about that? Or even if I'm able to offer like a referral, like I make sure that I'm like doing that so that other people can also have like the same opportunity. But I mean, there's plenty to see at the table for all of us. If I can help others get on, like I try to do that. I think also just like the responsibility of, you know, creating more representation within tech for other students to be able to see. So like part of my work, like on my team, I run the Instagram page for one of our programs, and I make sure that on that Instagram page there are images of Black and brown like young boys and girls, and making sure that there's like representation for people that are like handy capable, and really just thinking about all the different ways that we can show diverse images, and making sure that the message is out there that yes, I know that you may not see yourself within these spaces, but you are there, and these are some of the people that are there that are also paving the way for you to get there too. So really just making sure that I'm doing, and also when I'm having conversations with my team about like the needs of the communities and what should be our like focus areas, making sure that we are getting feedback, like from students, that we're getting feedback, from educators, and making sure that we're taking that feedback and really prioritizing it and not just leaning on our own like assumptions. I've also, been pushing for my team, we're thinking about like hiring decisions and choices, making sure that we're being inclusive, making sure that we're also thinking about the fact that we work with majority, Black and brown students. So our team should reflect that as well. And so there's little things like that that really have like a big impact. And for me, I always like told myself that, with like I think about like, I mean it's kind of corny with the Spider-Man quote that's like, with great power comes great responsibility. That is something that I constantly like tell myself as I'm like doing this work. Like, you're in a privileged position right now, being able to work for a company like Facebook. So what are you doing with that privilege? Like, how are you like taking that privilege and helping others? And that's something that I try to do like as I go every day in my work.
I think that's amazing. Just another reason why you're amazing. So, what advice would you have for students of color who are looking to, work in big tech, who want to work at Facebook one day? Like, what skills and experiences do you think that they should have to get noticed by the team?
Yeah, so I was recruited by Facebook, so I didn't apply, and I think that when I was like talking to my team about like, one, how they even like found my LinkedIn page, I would say that they said that they basically were searching for like specific like buzzwords and keywords, and then they were putting that into LinkedIn, and that's how my profile like showed up. So I would say one and really important thing, work on your LinkedIn page. Like, that is your professional brand, that is your professional story. Invest in it. Like, really make sure that, you think about the different industries that you're trying to attract, that you might want to like get a job in, and think about the different words that are like buzzwords for those industries. So like, if you're, really interested in being like a marketing like manager, like think about those marketing, like buzzwords like SEO, like content development, like advertising, like and also just making sure that you have like recommendations like on your LinkedIn page, so people that are able to like vouch for your work. Like, if you work for someone and even they could give you a really good recommendation, like reach out to them, just be like, hey, like, really love for you to talk about, how I supported you in like X, Y, and Z area. And sometimes it might even be helpful to like, they're kind of like, oh, well, I'm not sure if I have time, or I'm not sure what exactly. Just kind of like, give like, well, these are some of the key areas where I supported you that you can just like highlight, kind of like give them like some bullet points to like work off of. And that also like really is helpful. I would say also LinkedIn does a free premium trial account. I think it's like for 3 months you get to do their premium. You run their premium account version. I would say do that, especially around the time when you're trying to, like start looking for a job. Like, use those 3 months to give your page like a boost, because premium accounts like hold a heavier weight than people that are just using like the basic account. So I did that trial probably, yeah, I did it a couple times. I did that. They offered to me I think twice, and I took advantage of it like each time. And I think that was also like helpful in like getting Facebook in order to like find my page. So I would say work on your LinkedIn page, and definitely just like as you're like in different like spaces or attending like conferences or events or lunch and learns, or just like talking to other professionals, make sure that you are creating a narrative for yourself. So like, when people hear the name, Chelsea, they should like think about like PR, communications, like marketing. When they hear the name, Yoni, they should think about like, being an artist and being an entrepreneur. Like, those are different like little like trails that you can leave for yourself, like as you are communicating these spaces. And whether it's, even if it's like your Facebook like page, like that is also like, a platform where you can also like create a narrative for yourself about who you are. And trust me, when you think people are not paying attention, they are. I've had people, direct message me on Instagram and on Facebook based off of something that I posted, being like, oh, hey, I saw that, you helped, plan an event, for 1,000 people, like I'm thinking about like doing this event and could use your support. Or hey, I saw that you participated like on this at this conference as a panelist. Love to have you be a part of ours. Like people are always paying attention to what you're doing, and even if you think that you're not. So make sure that you are creating a narrative for yourself that's going to help you get ahead.
I love that. I think of I don't know if you came across it, but I came across it a lot, the elevator pitch
Yeah.
that to have ready. I feel like, they tell us to have a certain time frame of an elevator pitch about yourself, and we usually forget about it after we graduate. But like you said, creating a narrative, not only when you're networking, not just being like, hey, I'm Chelsea, having a sort of pitch of what you do so people can relate a certain buzzword with you.
Exactly.
And I love what you said about making sure all your profiles reflect that narrative. I think none of us look at our LinkedIn probably enough.
Mhm.
And even what you said, Facebook, Instagram, there's so many times where I've looked at people's Instagrams and I'm like, this has nothing to do with what you're telling me you do, or you're telling
Yeah.
me you do music, for instance, and all I'm seeing is selfies. So
Yeah.
um, do
It's
you have
so
tips about that? How to
yeah.
build?
Yeah, and I would say too, like even when you're thinking about like your elevator pitch, like you don't have to like be super rehearsed to the point where you sound like kind of like a zombie, just like reciting your elevator pitch. Like then you could be authentic, like definitely like genuine to yourself, but you do need to be able to keep in mind like what are like three things. So when I'm talking to this person that I want for them to take away about myself, and those three things can be I, majored in this and I worked on this like really cool project and my future hopes is this. That could be your three things and that's awesome. But you do need to make sure that you have those in mind so that you can maximize like those conversations. But as for your social media like pages, like yeah, I think there's two things. I think that if you're a person who is like very much like my social media is for me, is where I want to be, I don't want to be a professional on those pages. Like I just want to be authentically me. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would say that make sure those pages are private. Like if you so your Instagram, your Twitter, or those are spaces you kind of just want to let loose and be yourself. Like make sure that they are private because I guarantee you when you're applying for a job they are going to look at your social media accounts. I have been on hiring teams when we have done that, so I'm being honest with you. They will look you up, especially bigger name companies. They're going to look you up. So if you want to be authentically you and you don't think that something that your at a future employer will want to see, make it private. That's my first piece of advice there. But then if you're the type of person you're kind of just like, oh, I don't have anything on my social media that I wouldn't care if an employer sees, awesome. But then you still, like Chelsea said, need to make sure that you have something on there that represents like a little bit of your professional life. Even if it's you, like posting, about a new job opportunity, or even if it's you, like saying like, hey guys, I just ran this really cool, virtual summit for my company. Like here's a little bit of a recap for that, or even if it's you like in your bios, like on your like social media pages, like, insert in like a little bit about what you do. If you have a website, or online portfolio, like link into that, like in your bios. And there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it, but it should never be to the point that if you're, especially if you're applying for a job in the marketing or communications industry, it should never be a point where someone goes to like your public Instagram page and they don't see anything about you being within marketing and communications. Because for if I was like a potential employer, I would have questions like about that. I would have questions. And so I know a trick that I've learned from like a few friends is that what they will do is like when they know that they're about to, apply for like a job, they will go to like their social media like pages and start to just like kind of like curate, content on those pages. So they might like unarchive, like a post where they like posted a flyer for like an event that they ran. They might like add like, a little bit more to their bios to like make sure that that person knows like that they're serious about like being in this industry. And then when after they're like, done with like kind of like the job search or the hiring process, they can then archive those posts and it disappears like off their page. So you do have that flexibility there that you can kind of like choose like when you want to have like more of a professional tone to your pages. But I would say that like if your pages are public, just make sure that there's not anything on there that you would be worried about a future employer seeing.
I love all those tips. I love the ideas of using your social media as an extension of your resume,
Hmm.
it's curated properly. I know that I want to be mindful of your time, um, since you have a appointment on the West Coast. So, are there any final like advice and tips that you have for our students, or how can they connect with you? Because I know that probably they have a lot of questions that they may have not felt comfortable sharing here.
Yeah, so yeah, I will put my email in the chat, so you guys can see that. Okay, so I just put my email in there. You could also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I'll just put like my full name in there so you can do that. But yeah, so final tips. Yeah, I would just say like I said, just think about the different ways that you can build your narrative of like who you are. I think that's like super important. And I think that that's the reason why I was able to get my job at Facebook is because like for example, like on my LinkedIn page, I had like a little like, bio section on my LinkedIn page where I really told the story about not only about me being a, marketer, but also like my passion for just like working with students. That was on my my LinkedIn bio, and my passion for being able to work with, like underrepresented communities. I had that in my LinkedIn bio. So it wasn't just about like, oh yeah, I'm excellent at driving results and I'm good at, creating brand awareness, but it also was, but most importantly, I'm mostly, like focused on building community. I'm mostly important about, like really just like adding value to like, social, justice campaigns and like really trying to like uplift and empower like students and like really just trying to do good in the world. Like that was all just on my LinkedIn page, no matter like where you looked at it. And that's part of my narrative of who Shyrier is. So I would say like figure out like what's your narrative? Who are you? And what do you want people to know about you, and making sure that that exists in a way where other people can see it. I would also say that, take advantage of opportunities that you have like in college to be able to join groups that are also like, like trying to get into the same industries as you, like attend those little like events or little networking opportunities that your school might have, because those make a difference. You never know who you might meet, who you might connect with, and honestly like you'll, and also the people that you just meet in general in college, form authentic relationships with those people, because you never know when they might be working for your dream company. And when you want to like, send them a message on LinkedIn, you don't want it to be awkward where you're like, hey, remember me? I know I only spoke to you one time, but can you help me get a job here? Like you want to make sure that you're actually like building like authentic relationships with people so that they remember you and then they would want to like help you. And I would say also just like if you're thinking to yourself like, oh, I can never like work for this team or I could never do this, like stop doubting yourself. Like stop doubting yourself. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Like comparison is the thief of joy. Like really just focus on you and just know that like you have what it takes to do what you want to do, to work for those big companies. And yeah, just like really put yourself out there. Don't be afraid of being told no. I've been told plenty of times in my job search, like plenty of times, but 10 no's can equal the right yes. So just kind of remember that. And as I put my information in the chat, I know Chelsea will also share it. Please feel free to reach out to me. If you are feeling a little bit shy today, that's totally fine, but feel free to send me a message if you want to like connect and like have like a phone call. I'm always happy to do that. If you're looking for a mentor or a coach, I'm also happy to discuss that with you. I have a coach at Facebook and she's phenomenal and has been a big help to me. So I'm always willing to coach another person as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm just so glad that you were able to join us. I hope that the students were able to take as much as I did from here, and connect with you, because I think that you're an amazing person and it's an amazing connection to have, for these students. So thank you once again. I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chelsea. And thanks everyone. Hope you all have great days.